What's up, YouTube? It's Io the Boat, and today we are doing a hero art tier list, joined by me, Kyle P.
What's up? This is Kyle P, one of the top 32 world's qualifiers. What's up, Iowa? How you doing?
Doing good, doing good. Just ready to take a look at these hero arts in this tier list. Today, for the format of the rankings, we will be looking at each hero art for its viability, and we'll be discussing the viability between each hero art for all of the heroes in TEPPEN. I have joined by me Kyle P.
What's up? This is Kyle P, one of the top 32 world's qualifiers. What's up, Iowa? How you doing?
Doing good, doing good. Just ready to take a look at these hero arts in this tier list. Today, for the format of the rankings, we will be looking at each hero art for its viability, and we'll be discussing the viability between each hero art for all of the heroes in TEPPEN. Alright, next up is Denon. This is the burn hero art where it ups the damage for each card in your hand field by +1 damage. This has been seen used in the mono red build to burn face, and then we've seen some interesting builds. I know Dango showed us a black red build. We've seen some red purple builds in the past. What do you think of this hero art?
I think Denon is pretty strong. It is the only Ryu that is represented in Worlds, I believe, and that is Denon with Dango. I think that the hero art is pretty solid for what it does. It's not as versatile as like Shinku. Like you have to make your main deck work more with this hero art, but for what it does, I think it's pretty strong. I would probably put it around A tier, honestly.
A tier?
I would
Wow.
put it at A tier.
Stronger than Hadoken?
I think it's stronger than Hadoken. Yeah.
Oh, what's a interaction with this hero art in the game currently that you think really represents it, like in the game right now?
Well, it's kind of like a counter pick hero art, and so against the meta, I think it's actually pretty strong. In like the lower and like in champion, I think it's very strong. I'm not sure how it would be anywhere below that, but it's just the fact that this with Sun Goddess kind of just turns everything to mush. And I know that Dongo uses Anita, and the synergy with Denjin and Anita right now, I think, is super good. And that's for the dual color version. For the mono, I think that Denjin is kind of like a more unitless deck. There's not a lot of units, and so it kind of counterpicks like the black meta or the red a little bit, where red kind of has a bunch of damage dealing stuff. And so I think that as a hero art and the tools that it can bring, I think it's a very strong anti-meta card or anti-meta deck, which would, for me, put it at A.
That makes a whole lot of sense. Yeah, you're talking about the action deck. Those decks tend to focus on playing actions to play the game instead of using units. So this will often put your opponent in very precarious situations because most decks out there in TEPPEN, they only know how to handle with units. So as soon as they see a deck that's just all actions, then they start to struggle and don't know what to do. And Denjin is exactly that hero art. You know, shoutouts to the Thirsty Games for taking this deck back and populating it for the American meta. I would definitely see this at an A tier just because it does represent the action archetype of decks. So I do like that. Next up we have Metsu Shoryuken. This one we saw played last month with red green Metsu Shoryuken. It was playing the Nero and the Feline, where the Nero would get like 4-8 in stats, and then you would get combo, spill over, 8 damage to the board, and clear the board. But that actually got nerfed. Nero got nerfed.
Yeah, Nero got nerfed.
And then who else got nerfed? The feline only has like one tribe, so we don't see it played anymore. I know I saw a lot of top players that were trending towards the red green deck, and I saw one particular player use this hero art and place very high. I actually lost to them.
Mm.
What are your thoughts on this hero art?
I would put it in C tier. Just because I mean, there's a lot of decks that play the same, and for the most part, with its best deck probably nerfed, just from the feline nerf overall. It's not really a hero art that you use to gain advantage, so it's kind of a gimmick, right? Where you kind of
Yes.
just put combo on something and then you go off of that. So if there's like a big threat on the field, it's really hard to take care of it. So I think that with that hero art, it's kind of easy to get run over or run down, but it can also end the game very quickly, right? You like putting combo on a flight unit or something that's unblockable, anything like that can really like be a true menace. But overall, as a hero art, I think it's not worth playing overall.
I agree with that. And one of the keywords that I really liked what you said was a gimmick. A gimmick doesn't necessarily mean bad, but a gimmick
Hmm.
can mean um, essentially what it is. You know, a gimmick is something that once you figure it out and you take a look at it, you can start to figure out counters for it. And once you get the counter to that gimmick, it'll help you immensely, you know, applying those counters because gimmicks are just very susceptible to counters. You know,
And I
once
mean, Teppen has a lot of gimmicks in it, right? Or what we could consider gimmicks. And so I think that this is one of the weaker gimmicks,
yes,
if that makes sense. Yeah.
it does. And gimmicks are not necessarily bad.
No, they're
They
not bad.
they do their thing, but you know, it's kind of niche
It's
in
just
another
less
sense.
consistent, you know.
Yeah, most definitely. I agree with C tier. It's not
Hmm.
being played right now, but we can definitely see through viability
It's
it's a
always still
gimmick.
around, you know. Like you're gonna run into it,
True that.
whether you're lucky or unlucky.
Alright. So next we have Dive Attack Rathalos. I know that Kame-san was playing this last month when we had the qualifiers and such. Now
Kame's
with
so cool.
this, he certainly is. He built the red green deck, you know, before it got nerfed and used this to get to really high ranks with Dive Attack Rathalos. I don't see it on the ladder as much anymore, but
Hmm.
this hero art, if you can get a full board, especially with mana boost units, it can give you,
It can be pretty devastating.
yes,
It's definitely it can turn the tides. It can turn the momentum heavily. And I do believe that Kame took Dive Attack to Worlds as well. So it
oh
does
boy.
have some representation.
Okay, I like that. Yeah, for me, I think this hero art would have to be, I would say B tier because I can't really say it's better than Denjin,
Hmm.
but I also can't really say it's weaker than Shinku.
Right. Personally, I like to stay consistent with a lot of my stuff, and so if if a hero art doesn't gain me advantage, I typically try not to use it just because of like how I play. I think that Dive Attack with the right deck though is definitely very very hard to deal with, and so I wouldn't put it in A. I would probably put it at B. It's pretty solid. It's just that it forces you to have units for it to be usable, which is like kind of something that I'm not really enjoying when I use it. But I think that it's definitely solid. I think it is a solid B tier. It's better with dual color, also, like, in my opinion.
Do you think it's better than Shinku for viability?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, nice. Next up we have Rathlow's second hero art. This is Blazing Wall. This is where you can add a shield and 2 HP to a unit. This hero art used to be used, you could still see them, but a lot of decks are just tending towards feline, or they'll
Mm.
even go, actually it's just feline, but This is the other hero art you can do for the red-green decks if you wanted to protect your unit.
This is just Red's hero art version of Shield Spire. Even though it came out first, I say it like that because I think Shield Spire is definitely better.
I agree with that.
Rathalos kind of feels like a dual color hero.
Yeah, there isn't really any monocolor builds with Rathalos. I'm thinking this hero art has to be B tier, and I base that off of it only being part of the meta for a short time compared to like everything else.
Yeah, Blazing Wall was really strong like months ago, right? And then other stuff kind of outshine it, or like Valstrax got nerfed, right? And so it makes Blazing Walls like offense a little worse. I do know that two Blazing Walls are in Worlds. One is Dongo, and the other one is Max from APAC.
Okay.
Dongo's build is pretty good. Dual color also. It's just basically like to give a shield to a beefy unit, you know, and rush down, which is kind of what Blazing Wall's always been about. I would definitely put it B tier, probably the lower end of B tier. Like even if new stuff comes into B tier, I think it's still gonna be lower than a lot of them. But it is like a menace. It's just like it's easy, like the units, because Rathalos is a dual color hero. It's easy to get like Dark Destruction or like Fate. Like Black does really well against a lot of Rathalos stuff, and so I would put it definitely in a lower B tier.
Okay. I feel like because it doesn't have a deck to fit in right now that really just like accepts it for its you know, ability like it used to be, I think it actually should be C tier, just only because you know, there not being another deck out there. But I also agree with you, like this is a hero art that could be better in the future, so it's something to keep in mind that that could be changed, like from a C
Yeah,
to a B, or
just like Metsu too. Yeah, Blazing Wall is probably borderline high C to low B at the moment.
right. I agree with that.
I'm cool with that.
So we have Wrath Awoken being the next hero art. This one, I remember this being the hottest thing in season 1, where you just fly a unit, give it any amount of attack. Right now it's nerfed, so you only can cap at 3 attack and you give it flight. This hero art does not see play in our meta. In many metas. It's crazy.
I've seen a couple of like you know, like the old builds just kind of revamped, where it's like mono ramp and stuff. I would definitely put it like lower C tier because it costs too much. Like it makes a dual color deck kind of slow because it costs 22. They don't have like instant attacks anymore. By the time you get 22, it means your opponent also has probably around 22. And I think the units are kind of easily killable. So
yeah, it actually follows a similar mindset as like Charge Shot, and that's a hero art later to be discussed. But I do think that what you're saying is 100% valid, and the main point of why Wrath Awoken is actually not that good. So I definitely see that being lower C tier, no doubt. That
it could still win games, right? Like you could still put down the Rashid and then give him flight and he deals like 50 with a state of nothingness or something, but it's definitely like more situational than most hero arts.
Yes, and I do think it's that AP cost. The AP cost is brutal.
Yeah, it's 22. 22 is a lot. That's Raging Demon territory, you know. Raging Demon gets so much more.
Alright, this next hero art, Ultimate Weapon. This is where you get a rocket launcher, 3 MP action card to your EX pocket, and you explore for it, and then you deal 10 piercing damage to a random enemy unit. I actually do not like this hero art But I will give it some props because I've been hearing that more players are playing this lately, and that doesn't make sense to me because I immediately think it's a meme. Do you know anything about this hero art?
I've definitely climbed a champion with it before.
Okay.
It's just in a way it's a weaker Shinku. It costs 17 and then 3 to play the rocket launcher, which means like if you played another 3 cost, you would have had Shinku active at 20, if that makes sense. That's kind of just how I view Ultimate Weapon overall, is that it's a 20 cost hero art, only because you have to still play the card.
That makes a lot of
Um,
sense.
yeah, so and then it's like in a deck, like the only thing that's gonna be different is that you're gonna be playing that guy. Let me look up what his name is. He's the one that searches for an explored card. 3 cost, 3/2 agility.
Oh, I think his name is Ida. Ida.
Yes, yes, it is. Yeah, him. He kind of makes that card or that hero art playable, just because you play him and then you get another one. But what makes the hero art unplayable is you can chain to it. So 10 damage and piercing looks really good on paper, right? Like, what if they have 1 HP? You're gonna be dealing 9 to the face. But if you run into any green deck, the hero art is like non-existent. Or if you run into a black deck, they probably have selfish predation or something that will kill their unit, and then whatever your rocket launcher targeted, now it doesn't matter because their unit's on the field. You're not going to take the damage. So the hero art is definitely in the C category for me, just because the hero art automatically loses to all green decks, because all green decks are going to play wall jump or block, some type of shield, completely nullifies it, and then you wasted 3 MP. You would have got more value out of a unit.
Yeah,
But
there's a
it's
lot more counters these days with all colors.
and the more like new sets come out, the more counters there probably will be for this hero art. So this hero art is very inconsistent, but it is one of my favorite ones.
That's fair.
Unfortunately, like I love the hero art, but it's just not a good one.
I dislike it, but I think we can both agree this is the end of C2.
Mm-hmm.
Alright, next hero art is Antibody Activation. This is a hero art that requires 3 Explore, and you can give +1/+3 health to a friendly unit and also give it shield. This is Red's hero art where you can give a shield to a friendly unit besides Blazing Wall.
I think this is A tier. Jill's always been a very inconsistent hero in general, but with the addition of the Molsters, this hero art has become very, very strong. And I think it's the best red hero art for the red mirror match.
Most definitely. Being able to increase health and add a shield in the red mirror match is exceptionally good. I definitely see why you took it to Worlds.
Yeah, it's funny too. I have never really played Jill before, but she became a lot more popular this month and last month, and even though I didn't have much experience with her, the deck was so good. I was able to learn it really fast, and I had the decision of Amaterasu, Great Divine Intervention, or Antibody, and I chose Antibody because if I run into red mirrors, it would be the better hero art.
Most
And
definitely.
it's only 15 AP cost. So if you open up like a way to get 3 explorers before your first hero art activation, like you're pretty solid.
Oh yeah.
15 AP for a souped up blazing wall. It's got an extra defense hit and an extra attack, and it's also what, 1 AP more than Blazing Wall, I believe.
Yes, only 1 AP more.
Yeah. So, and if you're gonna be using some really good cards like Molsters, right, or Hellbat already, like you should definitely just pick Antibody.
Yeah, I like that
And
concept.
and it's very good for Rushdown too. Like you just play Fate Defy Ryu, Antibody it, and you're pretty good. You're in a good spot.
Pretty much win the game at that point. Think it's better than Denjin?
I think it is better than Denjin. Yes.
I agree with that. And I agree with that just because the antibody deck right now in its current state, it can go a hybrid of units and actions, but it gets the best of both worlds, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, I think I played 14 units and 16 actions, so it's extremely in the middle. And I want to say there was a lot of antibodies attending Worlds.
Yeah, quite a few. I know Tarakomon took it back because he brought that last year and he's bringing it back.
There's like 10, maybe 10 antibodies, I think, and it's the only Jill hero art represented.
Yes. Alright, next hero art. Genesis. This hero art allows you to randomly get back 2 explore cards that you have explored before in the game and add them to your EX pocket. This hero art is mostly used with the lame detonate deck where you just Genesis and
Hellbat, Tama, Guile, all explore for detonates.
Yep, and you just clear the board repeatedly. You can also use this with Jury, but it's not as consistent. It's a gimmick. It's a really bad gimmick.
The Genesis is kind of a gimmick right now, in my opinion, because I mean, what you're doing is you're just searching for a bunch of 1 cost that deals 6. But you can get rushed down fairly heavily. And it doesn't explore for the cards, so it doesn't even work for the explore count for like other cards. Unlike Ultimate Weapon. Ultimate Weapon will give you an explore count, right? But yeah, Genesis is definitely, for me, I would say it's C tier also. I think it's just not good enough. I think that it's consistent for what it's doing if you build a deck around it. Because, I mean, you just have to search, explore twice. You can search for, like, Molsters, but it's random, right? So if you had played a Molster, and then you play a Hellbat, you don't know if you're going to get 2 Molsters from it, or you could get 2 Detonates, or 1 and 1. So if you explore for anything that's not a Detonate, or something that you want, you risk having something else go into your EX pocket. And that's pretty tough. Consistency wise.
Yeah, not getting the cards that you want to set up for, so it kind of limits you in that way. But I have seen the deck work very well, even though it's an inconsistent gimmick.
Yeah, I think it's fairly consistent, but only for what it's doing, right? Like your idea is to explore for detonates, right? And it's gonna do that for sure. Like you're always gonna do it. It's just that the deck itself is not that strong, and it's easily countered, especially in the current meta. You know, like if you detonate for 6, that's cool. You started a chain, and now your opponent gets to possibly use free MP, and you're gonna kind of always initiate a chain, which is not always the greatest thing that you want to do. That's a hard thing for Jill. That's why Jill's kind of an inconsistent hero, but Antibody is so strong now because of Molsters that it has shot up.
Yeah, I'm thinking this is worse than Ultimate Weapon. What do you think?
I think it's better than Ultimate Weapon.
Oh
They
shoot.
cost the same too. Genesis is 17, I believe. But where you search 2 1-cost detonates is better than 1 3-cost that is hitting a random target, you know, At least Genesis, like one cost, are still good at starting a chain, right?
Yeah.
And I have seen Genesis deck people out. Like, there's definitely been builds where they just try and deck them out and win with some burn or something. And I think that those are overall better than Ultimate Weapon. But I do think that I think Genesis is also better than Rathalos. I think it's about the Metsu range. Like if I run into Genesis on ladder, I feel probably about the same I do when I see a Metsu. Actually, I'm probably more scared when I see Metsu, just because like they could randomly fly over me and combo and hit me for a bunch. I think it's pretty good right there.
Okay. Yeah, I can definitely see that. I agree with that.
Mhm.
It is definitely a hero art that presents a bigger threat. I guess me trying to rank it like lower end C tier was because I just don't respect the hero art because of how lame it plays. You
Yeah,
know, I feel like if you're gonna play a lame deck, might as well just play purple. So I just don't
yeah,
respect
true.
Red's version of lame. But I agree with you wholeheartedly. This should be right here.
Mm,
Next up, we have the latest hero to TEPPEN.
mm,
First hero art is GDI is what we call it, but that is Great Divine Intervention for Amaterasu. This is a hero art that deals 3 damage to all enemy units. If those units would die from this effect, remove them from the game instead, and then grant 2 HP to all friendly units at the same time for 21 AP. What do you think of this hero art, Kyle?
S tier.
S tier.
I put this as S tier.
I 100% agree. It does so much for you. It's offensive, it's defensive, it costs pretty cheap, and it also beats out the black matchup. I think black does present some problems with all of their like revenge and bring cards back, and
Yeah,
I
there's
like to have that option.
so Great Divine Intervention. There's definitely quite a number of them at Worlds as well. Um, I think that the value for this hero art is insane. You can use it on one unit. You can use it on more than one unit, right? Like there's no real bad time to use it, and you can hold it and create the threat against some matchups as well. Like like against black, right? Like red has always had a really hard time against black, but with this hero art, you're allowed to get rid of not just Sigma, but you can get rid of most revenge units. If they have a field of zombie and Junie, and they all get lower, like 3 or lower, this will clear them out, and then the advantage that you gain the MP back is no longer there. And so the fact that it removes it from the game is so strong, and you can't chain to it, right? Because it's a hero art. So they can't chain their selfish predation to keep their MP. It also stops cards like is it Master of Hado, you know,
Yeah.
which is 3 MP back on a unit when it dies, but you will not get that MP back on your ascended unit. So the hero art, not only does it do so much, but it makes your opponent play around it, which is extremely strong. Dealing 3 to the whole field. If they have 3 units, you're dealing 9 damage, and if you have 3 units too, you're gaining 6 HP as well. So you're getting a very strong advantage. And with Sun Goddess out, it does 4 to everything, which is basically Rikoha, right?
Yes. Or
So
spike launch.
yeah, or Spike Launch. So it's a very very strong hero art. It's super consistent, super good. There's a lot of decks that use it. Any red deck except for Explore is probably better with this. This is a better Blazing Wall, right? Because Blazing Wall is 2 HP and a shield, but this could give 2 HP to all your stuff. In theory, it is a better Shinku, because it won't hit a big unit, but it does hit multiple units. And right now, I think that like Rush is strong. This can kind of force them to not rush as hard. And because of the remove from play, it also makes more decks less viable.
Yes.
Poor
It
Shinku.
really
Poor
does.
Shinku. Rest in peace, Zombie Ryu. I miss you.
That's okay, you got a buff. Just play GDI, man.
Right?
Alright, I 100% agree with that. Next up, we got Thunder Edge. This adds +1 attack and agility to a friendly unit. I feel like this is just a similar hero art to Metsu Shoryuken. It just has different benefits because agility and combo are two different things. Agility allows you to have faster attacks, but they're single, so you can trigger more when attacking abilities. But combo is where you wait the whole like 10 seconds for an attack line,
It hits
deal
twice.
Yeah, it hits twice, so you can deal damage twice. That'll activate when dealing damage abilities twice. So you do have your different situations. I feel like combo is way better with spillover. You know, spillover with Thunder Edge is not really that good, but there's
Right.
a lot of cards that, you know, have when attacking and when dealing damage, and that's the main difference. I feel like they should be next to each other.
I think this is a B tier hero art. And my reasoning is while it will deal the same amount of damage as Metsu in the same amount of time, the thing is that if a unit has this is more of a gimmick hero art than the gimmick Metsu, because you can give this to Itsuki, and that has crush, right? So a unit with crush and agility is pretty insane, because that means that they'll never be able to like deal any damage back, any counter damage back. If you give this to a unit that has flight and combo already, there's that 4 cost that has flight and combo, and giving that agility can really turn the tides, and especially flight units being hard to take care of. You get less time to deal with that unit than you do with a Metsu.
Yeah. The Itsuki and Thunder Edge combo, I remember you showed me that deck, and that combination, or that threat with Itsuki and Thunder Edge with Crush, Agility, it reminds me a lot of Fate Defying Ryu because he plays exactly the same. When
Yeah.
you play him down, you can't really deal damage to him unless you play
Yeah.
like an action or a hero art.
Yeah, or a shield or something. But this has the ability to kind of like create, a fate defying Ryu situation, but as a hero art, and it does cost 16, so it's like a little costly for a hero art that's not going to gain advantage, but it is going to create a messy situation. So it's tough. I think that this hero art is good.
Okay.
It's just like a B tier for sure for me.
Fair enough. I could see the B tier, especially when using with Crush. I don't think it's at its full potential. I think more players should be experimenting Crush with agility. Do you think it's better than Shinku, or do you think it's a worse?
I think as a gimmick, it's probably still worse, but that's just, I personally put gimmicks a little lower than more consistent hero arts.
I agree with that. Then it would be lower than Shinku at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, we have Isun in the hero art. This is Celestial Miracle's Envoy, and this hero art is a stacking hero art ability where every time you use this hero art, I think it's like 20, 21 AP, and this hero art will give +1 attack.
The benefit of +1 attack is that it will make most of your units dodge cards that hit specific attack or lower. Well, if it was like attack damage, then they keep like the 1 attack, right? But this one will bump that number up, and it's continuous effect, and they can't stop it because it's an effect on your hero. So the second your cards get played down, their attack is already buffed up.
Yes. So it makes a lot of interesting situations. It makes your 3 costs worth even more. Turns them into cards that would be things that you'd pay like 5 MP for, but instead you're paying 3 MP to play those cards. And I've actually had a lot of fun with this hero art because I played Hyanard and Neon Tiger
Mm-hmm.
with this,
Yeah, you
and
definitely
it's
like this hero art.
yeah, I do like this hero art a lot. It gives you a lot of major value for the mid game spike. I was just gonna rate this as a high C tier hero art.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you.
Yeah, the reason why it's a C tier hero art is because I only ever really found one deck to work with it. In addition, it's not better than Thunder Edge. It's not better than Shinku because you're not getting a whole lot out of it. You're
Mm-hmm.
just presenting a gimmick. It's not a gimmick in its like normal form,
Mm-hmm.
but it's still a gimmick to where you get what you get, and what you get is like not winning you the game outright.
Right.
It's just strong.
You still have to play the game with this hero art,
Yeah.
and the strengths are that it stacks. It makes a lot of your units worth more, but the weakness is that it has to build up to it. It costs 20. It's better mid to late game, so the early advantages aren't as strong. Um, and it also only works on red units. And because it only works on red units, it means that it's a lot harder to abuse. Like dive attack is technically still better because you can use it on your green, like felines or was it Iris? Is that her name?
Yeah, Iris is the 5
Layer,
drop.
yeah, layer. Um, so dive attack can work on everything, while this one only works on red units. Just makes the compatibility with other stuff a lot weaker. I do, however, think it is better than Rathawoken.
You think it's better than Wrath Awoken?
I do.
I could see that.
If the game can last, this endgame is kind of insane. Only if the matchups allow it to. Just having like a 3/7 Ragi or like if you get it off 4 times, you got like a 7 attack fate defying Ryu coming at your face. Like it has its own little gimmicks with it. It's just that this hero art doesn't abuse like situations that much.
Yeah, and consistency is the most important thing.
Hmm.
Just being able to scale your mid game with this hero art means that you will definitely get to play the mid game, whereas, Wrath Awoken is like each time you set up, you
Hmm.
pretty much have to make sure that you don't make a play mistake, otherwise you just kind of lose.
Yeah, you could really waste your hero art with like Wrath Awoken. And this you don't really, you just get it and then you play it right away because it doesn't do anything else, right? But buff up your stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot more breathing room using
Hmm.
Celestial Envoy.
Yeah, it just doesn't cause a threat. Like I could put down a Cammy, you know, with like 7 memory and not be too scared of this hero art. It's not gonna deal with the Cammy. You have to have the units in your hand as well.
Yes. Next hero art, we have Heart Tank. This hero art is brought by two of the best players, in my opinion, in the TEPPEN World
Mhm.
Championship. You got
Mhm.
Rana and Hayakeo, which are really big names. There are many other great players, but these two are
These two are
very
definitely
serious players. Yeah.
super strong players,
Mhm.
and it's surprising that they brought Heart Tank. And I'm really
Yes.
curious to see what those decks look like as well.
Yeah, I'm scratching my brain. I'm pulling my hair. I really want to see this deck. I
Me
almost
too.
want to make a separate tier for this and call it like the X tier because
Questionable tier.
we don't even know what it is
Yeah,
with
like
this hero art.
we don't know if it's a game breaking deck or not, like something that we don't think of. I mean, we have Thirsty, who's like a very strong X player, but you know, it's tough. You don't know who can create something. Anything can just become super strong with the right ideas.
Yes. So I'm thinking, but let's, you know what, just for fun, let's start to rate this hero art as we know it instead of looking at the world's thing.
Hmm.
So I think this hero art is very widely known as a weaker shield spire,
Hmm.
and I actually, while I agree with it, I also have to play devil advocate as far as like disagreeing with it, because it is a hero art that gains you more health, so that way if you ever run into the bad matchup like red, and if they're dealing 4 or more damage, then it actually makes more sense to run heart tank than it does to run a shield
Shield
spire,
Spire.
at least
Heart Tank.
early.
Heart Tank is like a Shinku counter, right? It gives your unit plus 7 HP, while Ryu's Shinku Hadouken does 7 damage, but it costs 2 less. So it's kind of funny. I think the hero art is a very obvious C tier overall, because Shield Spire, even though it can be weaker or stronger than Shield Spire, the hero art still costs 18, right? So you're gonna get less uses overall during your match with it, and it's still like you could still melt 7 damage pretty easy with red, right? And the plus to Shield Spire is that it gains the three 3 to 1 damage to it, goes automatically to 1, right? So it makes your chain fists, or anything that does 3 or less damage, you're gonna get more value out of Shield Spire or something of that type of hero art, right? So Heart Tank is definitely a lower end, but it's still fun, and it's still fun to put it on like Cammy, Karen, like any of like the God Green cards, Kushala. It still makes things hard to get rid of, which is what it's supposed to do. It's just it's very heavy. 18 cost hero art is tough.
Most definitely. And I think this hero art is, without knowing what we know about worlds, I'd
Hmm.
probably put it weaker than Wrath Awoken. What do you think?
Um, I would. I don't know. I would still put it higher than Wrath Awoken. I think it's maybe like a Genesis tier, around Genesis. Just because it still does what it's doing, pretty consistently. And I mean, you give it on like a one trick pony, card, like a rushdown card. I know that Thirsty plays it with red green humans, and that's pretty strong still. Just giving like a Rashid 7 HP, or even a Chris, legendary Chris Redfield. It still does what it's trying to do, you know. And I know that there is those Gil Gil decks too, which are pretty fun, and I think they're a little underestimated as well. I think the hero art is it's a very solid C tier, and I don't really see it ever leaving C tier, even with worlds stuff.
Yeah, most definitely. Okay, I'm starting to see it now. Now that you mentioned the Giller B deck and using rushdown cards like, Heavenly
Hmm.
Kixchan,
Yeah.
Rashid.
Like Wrath Awoken, you only really have one deck. It's just like power buffs, and then okay, let's go for it. This at least is more versatile overall.
Right. Well, I don't know if I could really put Blazing Wall ahead of both Genesis and Heart Tank, since it kind of serves a similar
Mm,
purpose.
mm. Yeah,
Uh,
that's true. It's just that it costs a lot less than most of those hero arts. Like, isn't it what,
14.
14?
Yeah, that's 14.
14 is this is pretty good for a hero art.
How do you feel about moving it behind Genesis?
Um, that's fine. I mean, Blazing Wall. So to me, like Blazing Wall and Metsu are the same hero art. It's just one you want your unit to stay alive, and the other one you just want them to get in a bigger attack. So I have them equal, at least in like how I view it. I think that they're equal. You could say Metsu is better. You could say Blazing Wall is better, but they play the same deck. It's just, do you want to survive a little bit longer, or do you want to cause a HP threat?
Okay. When you put it that way, I think maybe we can bring it back. Alright, next here are we have Charge Shot. This one is a recently nerfed one, and it is 21 AP to give all of your units the ability when they heal, they get +1 attack. This used to be cheaper. I can't remember what its
16?
previous
It used to be 16.
16. Yeah,
Mhm.
that made way more sense.
Mhm. It's a
We were,
gimmick hero art.
mhm. We were talking about
Uh,
this when we talked about Wrath Awoken, how Wrath Awoken costs like so much, and now this one costs so much.
mhm. Definitely both nerfed pretty heavily. This hero art used to be really bad, and then it became really good because of the introduction to the X with Resonate card for cost.
Yeah.
Um, and now that that card is nerfed, along with Charge Shot also being nerfed, I think Charge Shot is a pretty bad hero art overall. It can still win games, right? Like most things in Teppen can, but as a consistency issue, it's 21 AP. You need like you really need like at least 2 units on the field to really get it going, and then if they stop the 1 unit, you have to start all over again, and it requires too much setup, especially for a 21 cost. So I think that this is borderline one of the worst hero arts in the game now.
Jeez. You
Yeah.
know what? If you're gonna put it that way,
And I'm completely okay with this being in D tier because I used to really hate running into Charge Shot on ladder when it was 16 and you had the X with Resonate. I would be like, oh my god, I can't deal with anything, and now it's all nerfed. I'm so happy.
okay.
This needs to be one of the scariest hero arts.
Yeah, I really want to put this in D tier, and I know I had it next to Wrath Awoken, and I kind of compared them, but the
Mm-hmm.
reason why I feel like this should be in D tier is that you have to set up way more with Charge Shot
Mm-hmm.
to get like the full board and heal it, and
Yeah.
also play the actions. You just have to invest in so much to get this hero
Mm-hmm.
art off, and you will either die before you get to set up, or
Or your
you
opponent
will
could have something already to take care of it.
correct. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
like Wrath Awoken, you can just charge up to your climax point and then play a setup, just like one
Mm-hmm.
unit, and then just Wrath Awoken. At least you'll get that
Like
damage
right
in.
before the attack, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
before the attack finishes, you can just Wrath Awoken, deal that last second, you know, extra 3 damage flight. But
Mm-hmm.
Charge Shot, ooh, D
It's
tier.
like, oh, I activate Charge Shot, and then I'm gonna play an action to buff my HP, and then, oh, okay, cool. Here's like a Fate or a Lip Slash or something, and then, oh, it takes too much to set up. That's all. Very
Yes.
inconsistent.
Next up, we have Gaia Armor, X's third hero art. This hero art gives Veil to all of your units, and I actually don't think that this hero art grew very well like through time.
Mm-hmm.
And some players might think that this is a broken hero art. It's like really good because Veil means that you can't target it. But
Mm-hmm.
Teppen to me has shown to be a game where cards a lot of the times just ignore targeting, and they just still affect your board without having to even target. So about, I would say, 80% of the time the Gaia armor is not relevant.
I would say 95%.
Yeah,
I think that
95.
unfortunately, even though X is such a cool character, right? Like I'm a big fan of X. I love Mega Man X. Um, his entire design forces you to use resources, right? Or it's a gimmick. I've definitely lost a Gaia armor on ladder before, where they just give Gaia armor to like a Shara or something huge, right? And I would be playing like Shinku Hadouken, and then I can't target it. Now I don't have a hero art. Like there's definitely situations where Gaia armor can win, especially against like Fate, um, Obliteration, right? It has its uses. Veil is a very strong mechanic, and the hero art that gives Veil is very weak, and it costs also 21, I believe, which makes it hard to set up. So as a gimmick, it's strong, but it's still situational. Like you play Gaia armor, but their deck might not even target, and then it's like, okay, this hero art didn't do anything. I would also put it in D tier.
Yeah, I would put it maybe above Chart Shot, because Chart Shot doesn't really have much
Yeah,
consistency,
you
at
still
least.
need more setup for charge shot.
Yeah.
Gaia armor, you can just slap. Like you could ascend a Felicia 8 cost, right? You could get like 2 huge units. You can get 2 shards or something, and then play Gaia armor, and you're like, okay, I might win this game. But
You
like,
probably will win that game.
you probably will win that game. But it's definitely very situational, and you could still lose before you even get to play a Gaia armor or have a good setup for your Gaia armor.
I agree. Next here are we got Lightning Legs. This is Hayakuretsu Hyaku.
Mm. Say it
Hayakuretsu
again for
Hyaku.
me, Iowa.
Alright, I'm gonna say this for Kyle. Hayaku Retsu Kyaku. This is Lightning Legs. The hero art is a 13 AP hero art that adds +1 attack to a friendly unit and heavy pierce. Heavy pierce meaning that if that unit dies, they will take direct damage. This is an aggro hero art.
Yes, it's very similar to Thunder Edge, and I would put it at a B tier as well. I think that heavy piercing is one of the strongest mechanics in the game, because if you hit a unit and it's gonna kill the unit, it will always deal the full attack to the HP of the other player. So if my 10 attack unit heavy piercings a 9 HP unit, I'm gonna take 10 to the face, you know, and that is super strong. And I think that eventually down the road, heavy piercing should get changed to just dealing whatever's left over. But as it is right now, I think it's extremely strong, and it could really steal games just giving it onto a combo unit. You give it to a combo unit, it's gonna deal double, right? So you, even if it runs in and kills a unit, you're gonna take double to the face. If their attack is 3, you're gonna take that 6. It's very strong, and it's mostly used for a lot of aggro decks. So I put it around Thunder Edge. I would say it could be stronger than Thunder Edge, but personally, I think it's about even. They're about the same.
Okay. I actually think it's a weaker hero art than Thunder Edge. Personally, and I say that because with Thunder Edge, I could turn just about any unit into a threat, but with this, it requires my enemy's unit to be low HP, and then also the unit that I put this on has to be like halfway decent. But I feel like
Yeah, you put
agility
that
is just
on like
always good.
you put it on like a legendary Karen, right? Like you're gonna feel real good because it already has agility. But then Thunder Edge is gonna give agility to a unit that should never ever have agility.
Yeah. I also want to emphasize this for maybe uh, somebody listening in, but I like what you said about how piercing could work where it only deals damage over, you know, effectively what it already did. So if like something has 4 HP and you're dealing 6 heavy pierce damage, instead of dealing all the 6 damage, maybe you just do 2 because you did 2 over the health. I would like that better because I feel like Teppen needs to calm down on some like RNG and some numbers, you know?
Yeah, it gets pretty insane. Like you give heavy piercing to like something pretty wild, it could really just win the game in one attack, and it only costs 13. And the fact that it only costs 13 means that you can play really aggressive with it.
Most definitely. Alright, next hero art is Kakosho. I've only really ever seen this work very well once, and that was when Tarakomon took it to the Japanese qualifier tournament event last year and was able to use Kakosho with the Ascension Ceremony deck, which made all of your units into 3/6 flyers, and then you just gave them shield.
Oh.
Yeah, this was used to counter Rathalos when it was good.
Oh, that's pretty good. I can see that.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is pretty solid C tier. 17 cost for 3 shields, when you could just play 3 wall jumps for the same effect. But it does have its uses. You need a full field to really get the full value out of it. And I would, if I was gonna play dual color, I would rather play like Great Divine Intervention. But I mean, Kakosho's, it's not the worst hero art, but it's definitely not the best.
Yeah, I'd put it behind Celestial, and it's really hard to find a deck for it. You know, I've noticed that in the C tier, a lot of these hero arts and under, it's really hard to find decks for these hero arts, but they're still good because we've seen decks used with them before. It's just like right now in the meta, they don't have anything super viable or super meta that we've seen.
Yeah, and that could obviously change, right? Especially with a new set, or
Agreed.
or someone's beautiful mind makes something broken like Dongo and Devil Trigger. You never know when something could come around in Teppen. That's what's kind of cool about Teppen. It's a very creative game.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Alright, next here we have Yawn. This is, I feel like, an S tier hero
Yawn
art.
is S tier?
I think Yawn is S tier because it is a hero art that allows you to ramp in this game. I think the only weakness it has is just that it doesn't have the best. It either doesn't have the best late game or it doesn't have the best scaling against some matchups, but it's always one or the other when you have like a bad game with Yawn.
Yeah, I would put Yawn at A tier personally, and we don't have to switch it, right? We could leave it S if you want to, but just because it costs 20, and it does take a certain momentum. I think the deck has to have a certain momentum, and when that starts going, Yawn is extremely strong. But if you can't get that that like speed going or that flow, I think the hero art is very, very hard to use. But it's very good at what it does, and it also avoids Great Divine Intervention. If you remove the unit from play, you still get the 4 MP. And if you bounce it with like a intimidation or something that bounces it back to the deck, you're gonna get the 4 MP no matter what, which is really strong. But I think that that Yawn needs a certain flow to really get going, and that was why I would put it A tier. It's just like you need to find that certain spot, and then when you do, it's super good. When if you can't get to it, then it's hard.
I agree, and we'll definitely leave it here and then revisit at the end. But for me, the reason why I would put it in S tier is just because of the ability alone. Being able to gain 4 MP after you
No matter
lose
what.
the unit, yeah, no matter what, allows you to just play another card, and that's proven to be very powerful. I think it's
Mono
Green's
ramp
best hero art.
and stuff is definitely really good. I think it is Green's best hero art as well, and arguably the best Teppen player ranking wise is a big Yawn advocate. Earth.
Yeah.
He loves Yawn, and he definitely has Yawn in his lineup for Worlds as well. So we'll see how he does. I'm curious to see what his Yawn looks like too.
Yeah, he's one of the players I'm rooting for.
It would be cool to see him win the whole thing.
It would, yeah.
I'm rooting for some of the homies though. You know, myself, Spooky, Raya,
NA.
Melinda, Dongo, yeah,
and
dude,
JP.
all the homies, yeah.
All the buddies. I feel it. I
Mhm.
feel it. All right. So next up we got Devil Breaker. This hero art gives +3 damage to a friendly unit and spillover. And this hero art's very cheap. I think it's like 14 AP.
15.
15. Just close.
Mhm.
I think this hero art's better than Dive Attack.
Then dive attack. Yeah, I think it is too. Um, it falls in line with hero arts that I don't actually like playing, which is just like it doesn't really. It's kind of in between where it can take care of threats, but you still need a unit. The fact that it gives the spillover can really turn the tides of a match for 15. If you put your unit in the middle lane and you hit with Devil Breaker +3 attack, and your unit already had 3 attack, right? It's going to deal 3 damage to the top unit and the bottom unit, and then 6 to the middle one. And that could clear the board for 15 AP, which is super, super strong. And shoutouts to Shmo, who is a really good Nero player, and he really showed a lot of really cool dual color ideas for Devil Breaker this last month, and I actually ran his deck. I'm playing his deck in Worlds, so pretty cool. I'm playing Devil Breaker. Never thought I would ever say that.
Yeah, me either.
So pretty sick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just being able to clear boards for only 15 AP and
Hmm.
play it in some aggressive decks. It's a good hero art. I like how cheap it is and how you can use it last minute.
Yeah, it's a very solid hero art for what it's trying to do, and it can really create messy situations just by clearing a board with combo. Even just giving it to a legendary Chun-Li, and then she hits direct that does like 10
And
10
yeah.
damage randomly, like oh shoot. I was winning, but now I am not.
Mm-hmm. And I
Devil
like
Breaker's
that
cool.
how you could only have to use it on one unit, so it takes away the
Hmm.
stress of having to like have 2 or 3
Multiple
units with dive
units.
attack.
Yeah, and you can use it defensively as well. I mean, they're gonna hit your unit, and you don't have enough attack, but you can Devil Breaker first. You'll hit them, possibly kill their unit, even though the unit had a lot of HP,
Mm-hmm.
and it also creates a threat right after on your attack. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and there's actually a lot more hero arts like that coming up.
Hmm.
Alright, next hero art we have True Power. I personally think this is a gimmick. What this does is it allows you to target a friendly unit and it'll activate its next growth ability. And this is used usually on either green cards, where it's like, actually there's just so many green growth cards nowadays. But it could also be used on Dalamadur, but we're not going to talk about that.
That has a big old gimmick.
I'm thinking either C or D tier. This is tough.
I would put it in C tier. It's definitely one of those like you have to set up, but I think it's better and easier to set up True Power than it is to set up Charge Shot and Gaia Armor. And the units that it works with are all pretty strong overall. And it only costs 12, so it's like almost half of what we have in D tier right now, right? It only costs 12, so you can get going pretty quick. You have your, I mean, I know you didn't want to talk about Dalmandur, but the dual color Dalmandur deck, right? You level it up, you blow up the field. Um, you also have, you can use it multicolor. So you have like Ami hero or the Ami legendary, which can get pretty sticky. You have Gate randomly. There's a lot of really good growth cards overall, which makes it pretty strong for that stuff. But still lower like C tier because you still have to set it up, have specific units for it.
Right. I think it would probably be above Kakosho, just because it
Yeah,
has
yeah.
more decks.
You
So
also
I think
have the
it's a good spot.
the option of the 5 cost guy where you true power it. Now he has 2 shields. It's like for 12 I got 2 shields. Why would I play Kakosho? And then if he lasts long enough, you can true power it again. Give him that agility. He has combo. Yeah, true power definitely has more uses than a lot of other hero arts because there's a lot more uh, strategies that you can use. And I think it's really fun too. I think that the hero art is also extremely fun to use. Makes you feel
Agreed.
creative.
Most definitely, yeah. There's a lot of growth cards you could do.
Hmm.
All right, next and last hero art for Nero, we've got Hey Nico. This hero art allows you to pull from 3 random action cards. One is Gerbera, deal 12 damage split amongst enemy units. The next one is Ragtime. Ragtime allows you to halt the enemy board for 13 seconds. And then last but not least, you have Tomboy. That gives plus 10 in either attack or defense randomly to a friendly unit. So you could get plus 5, you can get plus 4, plus 6, and so on.
Hmm. I think this is Green's second best hero art.
I agree with that.
I think that it's better than Shield Spire. And I think that it's not as good as Yawn. I would put it either highest B or lowest A.
I'm thinking lowest A just because, we were talking about Earth earlier, and
Hmm.
Earth is taking this hero art.
Yep.
A lot of.
He. Go ahead.
I,
Sorry.
I heard a player talk about how this hero art was kind of like Green's version of Rakoha. I heard someone say that.
Hmm.
And when they
Yeah,
said that,
it's
I was like,
similar.
wow.
It's basically Green's version of Rakoha, but it's also like um I don't know, it's a better ultimate weapon. Like you could randomly get a 1 cost card that deals 12 split. You have cards like A-Trans that can copy these. You have Natural Cycle that will give you the rest of all of them back into your deck. Um, and even though, like the 3 cost that gives you the random power and defense, it's still really good. Like, even if you get +0, +10, like that unit's not going anywhere. Like, you just played a 3 cost heart tank almost, or it could even randomly get 10-0 on your Cami with heavy piercing. And I think that the halt one is actually the best of the 3. Halting your opponent's full board is basically a purple thing. That's Morgan's hero art, and it's pretty insane, especially if you have like a Itsuki or a Cami going real fast.
Yeah.
I think it's also, it only costs 17, so you get it like relatively fast. I think that if your main deck is Yawn, you could play the same main deck with Hey Nico, and it would do like just as good, more or less.
I agree with that. Especially the ragtime thing. I think a lot of players don't see that because they might think like Gerbera's 12 damage is better. But
Hmm.
just being able to undoubtedly control the opponent's board for ragtime is
Hmm.
pretty good. Especially
Yeah,
once you
just
start to get
board
to
lock.
natural cycle.
Yeah.
You board lock them, yeah. Natural cycle allows you to get back more ragtimes, and then that last stretch of the game is yours because you have ragtimes.
Yep, you're just chilling. You're like controlling the entire situation. And it's really hard to deal with, especially against green, because when green gets their momentum going, right, like it's really hard to deal with green. And especially after a natural cycle, Hey Nico's is tough to deal with. It can win in time a lot.
Mm-hmm. All right. So we thinking this is better than Denjin? or better than Antibody?
Um, I think it's not better than Antibody currently. I, it could be better than Denjin overall because of the late game aspect. It's just that it is still random, where when you play Hey Nico, you might be in a situation where you need ragtime or you need something else, right? And it is random, but yeah, it's hard to say. I would say they're roughly around the same.
I think the Hey Nico deck requires a really good pilot. You know,
Yes,
I haven't
I
really
agree.
played the deck myself, and I know a lot of players don't touch it because of the random aspect.
Mhm.
And there's like a lot of different hero arts that you can choose from. So like,
Mhm.
why play Hey Nico? But I do
Yeah.
think that Hey Nico does require a pilot that knows what the end game is, and if they know what
Mhm.
it is, that whole recycling your hero art thing becomes very strong.
Yes, I agree. I agree.
So for me, I actually think it's better than Jill in the right hands. I think it's
Yeah,
better than Antibody in the right hands.
the skill gap is definitely, it's harder to play Hey Nico than it is to play like Antibody these days, at least.
Right. But I'm just as fine as putting it behind Jill, but above Denjin.
Genjin. Yeah. Nah, yeah, I agree with that.
Alright. Next up, we have the Feline, and their hero art is Shield Spire. Gives plus 3 HP to a friendly unit, and any damage that it takes that is 3 or below turns to 1 instead. So, this hero art, we've talked about it. It's better than Heart Tank, for sure,
Mhm.
and it's better than Blazing Wall. I'm
100%.
thinking
Yeah.
it's a B tier hero art.
I would put it um around Devil Breaker. Shield Spire. Uh, because of the damage part, being turning 3 or less to 1, it makes the red matchup a lot easier for green. And I think that that's really solid because of how red is always a consistent color where it's always kind of around, right? Like a lot of people will play red, and it turns your Great Divine Intervention to 1, which is pretty insane because of how good GDI is. Shield Spire is kind of like the counter to that, and it's really cheap. It's 14 cost, right? 14 cost, and it can potentially give you just as much value as a Yawn, not as consistently as a Yawn, but you give it to an MP ramp unit like a Feline or something, it's gonna possibly stay out for a while, and you'll get a lot of MP value out of it with it costing so low.
Hmm.
I would
I agree
probably
with that.
put it at a higher B. I would put it above Devil Breaker, personally, because
I agree
of
with
all
that.
the red that's above it right now.
No, I agree with that. I
Hmm.
think Devil Breaker is still strong, but I
Yeah,
can
me too.
definitely see why Shield Spire would be better as far as like a consistency and meta standpoint. I agree with
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
Alright, next up we have Choral Orchestra. Allows you to pick a card on your field, and then any tribes that share a type with it in your hand will get its cost reduced by 1. So this helps you play tribal cards a lot easier and reduces the MP for units played. Right now, there's really nothing super busted with this hero art that warrants like game-winning plays to play this hero art, but there are a lot of different gimmicks that you can push out with this hero art. And for that reason, I think this is a C tier hero art, and I'm thinking it is right behind True Power.
I think this is a D tier hero art,
You,
and my personal reasoning is that it costs too much. It costs 16. Um, it costs 16. and the main decks that will use it are better with other hero arts. Shoutouts to Mallet Moogle. He was probably like the biggest advocate for this hero art. He would play it with humans, right? So you have the human deck, but the good human decks right now, you don't need to lower their MP cost. And at 16, it's just not worth playing, in my opinion. Like, sure, you could play a dual color deck and now you can play Fate Defying Ryu, but if I was to play a dual color red green, I would just rather play Cammy, you know. And it's tough. I think that 16 is too much. If this was like 12, a 12 cost, I think it would be a lot better.
Yeah, most definitely.
Like, it doesn't gain advantage, right? It's like a worse celestial envoy. In the fact is that, like, it's better end game where you turned all your like 4 costs into 1 cost, but you will probably lose by the time you get to the game where it's that point. I would rather just play revenge. Like, it's just like it makes your stuff kind of like a worse revenge, except they don't come back, they're just lower in your hand.
I agree with that, and there's really nothing that's like a strong ability that you can spam a bunch of times.
Mm-hmm.
You know, between like unit choices. So right now the hero art is not absolutely busted.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a whole lot of synergy out there that makes it busted. I think it's worse than Gaia armor because there's not really anything more consistent build for it that's better than Gaia armor, but it's better than Chart Shot because Chart Shot is kind of bad.
Yeah, I personally just think that it's a bad hero art with how costly it is, and it's like you have to run a lot of units to really have it like if you have a hand of like 1 unit and 4 actions, it's not really going to be worth playing, right? You have to kind of save it. It's a setup, but it's not a very good one. Just personal opinion.
I agree with that. Next hero art we have Plunder Blade. Plunder Blade costs 12 AP, and this allows you to steal one random card from your opponent's deck and adds it to your EX pocket. This hero art, I remember people were talking about how toxic it was, and
I think it's still very toxic.
fair enough. It is a toxic hero art. But I've also heard, you know, points where people are like saying this hero art's so broken, it shouldn't be in the game, and you know, hero arts abilities like these break the game,
this
things like
this is a
that.
bad Nico.
Hmm.
This is a bad Nico, but you can deck them. You can deck your opponent out, and take. You could randomly take a game-winning card, or even if it's like their deck relies on 1 win condition, you could randomly take it, and then now you win. Like, I was always afraid they were gonna steal my Sigma, and then now I can't win endgame. You know, like they take Sigma, it's like, okay, well, I hope I win before I deck out. Um, this is a hero art that could easily become A tier, but right now I think it's C tier. Depending on like what comes out in the future, or if they change it or something, this is one of those things where it's like if Teppen brings out the right card for it, just like old Charge Shot, this could be a hero art that could make or break the game.
I agree with that. Yeah, I think if they just make green overall stronger to
Mm-hmm.
build, like kind of how Yawn and Hey Nico have their decks, I could
Mm-hmm.
see Shield Spot. I'm sorry. I could
Plunder
see
Blade,
how
yeah.
Plunder Blade could be something better and playable. And then also
Mm-hmm.
the meta is very important. So
Mm-hmm.
whatever is causing destruction out there, Plunder Blade might be able to take it down better than Hey Nico or Yawn.
Yeah, currently it's definitely like a C tier hero art, but that it's like one buff or nerf away, right, from changing completely, changing the whole game. The one of the drawbacks is that it's definitely a mono green hero art, because you could steal a card that costs 6 or more in a dual color version, and then you can't even play the card. Your EX pocket will get full. So it's kind of like a strictly mono green hero art, but it could definitely be very scary, and I will always probably be afraid of this hero art if I run into it.
Yeah, they get a lot of triggers.
I know, like, you take all 3 of my selfish predations, or you, like, I can't heal. Like, it could be a real bad day for me.
Mm-hmm. Alright. I think this is a hero art that's weaker than True Power, but better than Kakosho. What do you think?
I agree. I agree with that. Currently. Tomorrow, I don't know.
Right. Next hero art we have Quicksilver for Dante. This hero art inflicts slow and counterbind to an enemy unit. Slow makes it so that it takes 20 seconds to complete a attack line, and then
Mhm.
counterbind means that that unit will not be able to do any counter damage to
Mhm.
anything that's attacking to it. I used to
Yeah,
play this hero
so
art in my zero attack deck.
I remember.
I think it's good in that deck, but Temptation has proven to be a much better hero art overall.
Mm. Yeah, Dante is not a very versatile hero in general. He kind of does what he does. Um, I think um, this hero art is not that great, just because it costs 18. You only select one unit, and then they could possibly ascend on top of it, right? Even in your zero attack deck, uh, if you make that unit zero attack, then it being slowed doesn't really matter. So personally, I would put this. I would probably put this D tier or closer to lower C.
I like D tier.
Yeah, I think it's
Probably
better than the rest of those though. I would. I
really.
even though I don't think I've ever lost to this hero art before, it's still it's still annoying. Like if I see choral orchestra, I'm like, all right, cool. If I see maybe you know what, I would say Gaia armor is better, just because I'm afraid of Veil.
Okay,
I
I
I
agree with
I,
that.
I think I don't know. I think with the ascend mechanic overall, and as long as ascend is in the current meta, like if it's still good to play, I think that hero art is kind of useless.
Yeah, I see that. Alright, next hero art is E and I, Ebony and Ivory. If you have a Resonate unit on the field, the Resonate unit's ability will activate twice.
Better charge shot.
Yeah,
I
most
would I
definitely.
would put this. I would personally put this lower C tier, like probably lowest C tier, because resonate is still a very strong mechanic, and it's cheaper than charge shot, and it could you don't need like 2 units for it, right? Like you could just have the 1 unit, and it could kind of get out of hand. Like like +1 attack resonate, and then okay, I played 1 action, now it gets +2 instead, and it can get really strong, but it's still not a consistent hero art, and it's still easily dealt with. But I do think it's better than what's in the D tier currently.
I could see that, yeah. I have seen Dongo actually make a pretty busted Ebony and Ivory deck.
Oh,
So
he he
it's
he has one every month. He has a good ebony ivory deck every month. It's just like the decks that he makes with it is going to be obviously better with a better hero art of the same color combination, but it still works, right? So that's kind of what makes it lower end.
Right.
Too
I agree with
reliant,
that.
too reliant on certain situations.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm comfortable where it's at right now.
Hmm.
The next hero art is Devil Trigger. I wish we did this video like a couple months back because I would rate it much higher. But as of right now, there's actually no viable or meta decks that are playing this hero art currently.
Yeah,
I'll probably put it in
yeah.
B tier, but I feel like it should be like so much higher.
Yeah, the decks that were really good with it have all gotten nerfed, which is fantastic overall for the state of the game. Just because for those 10 seconds, like, those 10 seconds really add up. And especially if you're paying a lot of HP to buff one unit, right? Um, I would probably put this at currently the highest C tier. Only because it doesn't have a deck.
I agree with that, yeah. I love this hero art to death though. It's like, like you said, one expansion away from being S and
Yeah,
A tier again.
yeah, it's very much like Plunder Blade, where it really just needs that one thing. And no one even thought that Devil Trigger would be like good, right? Like it's kind of always been like the better Dante hero art. And it's really cheap. It only costs 13. But Dongo really broke that hero art, and it was like, personally, like, you see, if this was like last month or 2 months ago, right? You see that hero art and you're like, well, great. you know and I probably would have put it at S tier like a month ago, to
Yeah,
be honest.
same.
But now I definitely, I think it's very strong, and it's very breakable.
I agree with that. Alright, we are now next to Morrigan, and this is where I can finally put a purple hero art in either S tier or A tier. And honestly, I'm gonna say this is an S tier hero art just because it can um, play decks where you lock the opponent out of playing the game, and we've seen that in a couple different builds. I just think that's a very powerful hero art, but there aren't really a whole lot of viable decks, so maybe it's probably A, somewhere A.
It's probably one of the stronger A hero arts, because it only has one deck style at the moment, you know, where you just kind of try and lock them and resonate or something over them, fly over them. This hero art, I think, is one of the, like, it was designed very well. Where at the beginning of the game, it was a good hero art, and it's kind of always been pretty good, pretty solid. I don't think it's ever. I'm sure people have considered it worse, but even now, like, you don't see a lot of temptations on ladder, but you do still see it at worlds. It's a very strong hero art overall, and a strong deck. I think it's definitely higher A due to its Teppen lifespan.
I personally think that it's a really strong hero art, so I would put it like all the way up here, personally, just because I know that my zero attack deck could beat the rest of these, besides Denshin. What do you think?
I think it's about equal to Jill, and you can put it like above Jill if you want to. I think they're about the same.
Next up we have Shadowblade. This hero art used to be nuts, and it actually got nerfed. I feel like this hero art would be still playable and nutty if it wasn't for that one nerf. And I feel like it doesn't deserve the nerf anymore, just
I
because of
agree.
how
Yeah.
um, power crept Teppen has gotten.
Mm-hmm.
But I would put this hero art at a C tier, maybe D.
I think it's better than Ultimate Weapon. Still, I think it's better than Kakosho. It's purple's only targetable hero art. But the thing is that it is 18 cost. It used to be S tier, in my opinion, due
Oh yeah.
to the health gain and the deck. Like the control aspect of that hero art is insane. Unfortunately, everything that worked well with it is not good anymore. So it's definitely in C tier. I do think that it's still playable, more so than like Rathalos. And dealing 6 for 18 to a flight unit isn't terrible. You still set up 4 eyes plays or something, but it's definitely a lot worse than it used to be.
Hmm.
I miss it. I used to be a very heavy Shadow Blade player.
Yeah, I missed the hero art too. I actually didn't like it at first, but now that the game is all power corrupt, I kind of miss it like a lot.
Yeah. It was such a fun hero art.
Yeah, Hellfiend is pretty broken.
Yep.
Okay, so the next hero art is Darkness Illusion. I actually thought this hero art was dead, but we know that it's at Worlds, and I've heard rumors here and there about what's going on with this hero art.
I don't know what they play with the hero art at all, but I have heard that in some cases it is better than the Temptation hero art, and I'm not entirely sure what they're doing with it, so I can't really have like a personal opinion on it. Like if I was to look at it from the outside, I would say this is a D tier hero art, but a lot of people that I trust tell me it's very good hero art, so I'm kind of caught in between.
Okay. Well, in that case, I feel like it should be lower B tier, just because we don't know about it, but if they say it's good, I know that the reason why it's good is because it can play, it can fight. So I'm thinking
Yeah.
B tier. What do you think?
I would probably put it at highest C tier. If like I wouldn't put an unknown hero art into B tier, because on the outside this hero art is like kind of bad, right? You have to halt them and then you can get rid of it. But then it's like if you think about the units that it could do it to, you can hit Yukimura or Orochi, things that are relatively hard to get rid of. It's also probably pretty good in like the big resonate mirror match, where they don't play a lot of units, and Temptation's not really gonna do that well against it, but you can halt like their Ibuki, their Dante, and then you're able to just get rid of it right there, even if they have like 40 HP from activating your resonate ability. So if I was to think about it, it would be more for a tournament style, to beat the mirror match for like a resonate purple deck. But that's the only real thing I can think of.
I agree with that.
Ladder wise, I don't think it's very strong.
Right, same. I'll probably put it behind
Double trigger for now.
Double Trigger. Alright, next hero art we have Fade, Fight Against Inner Demons. This is Zero's first hero art. This card can either get you a 1 MP action that gives +2/+4 stats to a friendly unit, or it'll give you a 1 MP action that destroys an enemy unit that's 6 cost or lower randomly on the field.
I think this is currently best B tier.
I agree. B tier for sure. I would put it right above Dive Attack personally. Just because of all the wacky decks you could use it with. You can do mono purple, you can do dual color. There's a lot of...
Giving this to an Oro Ascend is so heartbreaking against the right decks,
Especially red, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, at 14 cost, it's very abusable, and the cards that you get off of it are all 1 cost. So it's basically purple's version of Hey Nico, you know, except that it's set for destruction or power buff. And purple doesn't have a lot of power buff cards. So getting that +2/+4 can really be pretty devastating because there's a reason why purple doesn't have power buffs, right? And the fact that +2/+4 for 1 is so good.
Alright, next hero art we have Tenkuha. This hero art gives +2 attack and combo to a friendly unit. This is used in some decent decks. It's used in purple growth for sure. You know, with Kuroda Kanbei, so you can spill over and clear a whole board. But also, it is used in the stupid V Nightmare deck that should be going away next year in January.
Excuse me. This is also a hero art that Last Guardian brought to Worlds. Which is the current reigning champion from last year.
Yes.
Giving +2 and combo is pretty devastating. It costs 18, which is pretty heavy. It's essentially a better Metsu, except purple has a lot of really good low-level flying units. A lot of 3 costs that get flying from growth or the 4/2 flight unit, which if you give this to that, you know, if you play a flight unit on an empty board slot where your opponent doesn't have a unit, then that flight is probably going to hit at least once, right? Since it's gonna fly over a counter hitter, giving it something with +2 in combo means it's gonna deal 12 damage for a 3 cost. So this hero art is, I would say, is mid B tier, just because it costs a lot. But you give this to something with spillover or flight, it can be pretty devastating. A nightmare from V can end the game right there. You just play like ceasefire, lock the board. That's 15 times 2. That's all 30.
Yep. This hero art, because it's played in the purple growth deck, and the purple growth deck is actually really good right now because of the meta seeing a lot of growth Amis. And purple growth with Naoe, the 3-drop that is immune to damage for 13 seconds. I think this hero art is, as far as like viability, it should definitely be B tier.
It's definitely a B tier. Yeah, it's good, and it's kind of gimmicky, but it's kind of like Devil Breaker too, where you can get that +2 attack defensively and then offensively, right? Hero art is very strong. I'm actually really curious to see how Last Guardian is using it in Worlds.
Yeah.
See what kind of build he's going for. Because I think he's the only one
That took it.
who
Yep.
took it. So I'm very curious. It can really, if like purple gets to a state where your opponent is kind of board locked, then this hero art is very, very strong with the flight unit and could actually win the game on 2 attack cycles, right? Maybe even 1. So it's a strong hero art for sure. And Zero is a strong hero, as always.
As always, yeah. That won't change.
Nope.
Next hero art we have is Rakoha. This hero art actually made me upset about design because it used to be a 16 AP hero art that just did 12 damage for no reason.
Yeah, right. I'm very glad that it got nerfed. I think it's a lot more fair now.
Oh
It
yeah.
used to be S tier for sure, 100% S tier. Now I do think it's lower A tier.
Agreed. It sits in the same boat as Denjin.
Yeah, it's the same style as Denjin. Um, it it costs 22 now, so you definitely get a lot less of them in a whole match. But if you use it right, or if you can control the board state a lot, which is what purple's really good at, it can be very annoying to deal with. And memory count is very good mechanic as well. Just needing 10 memory, purple is very good at playing a lot of actions. So the hero art is definitely a very solid, very good hero art.
I'd actually probably put it above Denjin, but lower than Hey Nico. What do you think?
Yeah, I can see that. It's essentially the same thing as Denjin, but they have the option of things like stalling. You know.
Yeah, a lot better stalling with Rakoha.
Mm-hmm.
Alright, next hero art we have is Dark Destruction. This is Wesker's hero art, and this hero art allows you to destroy a enemy that is 5 MP or less. So kind of
Dark
like
Destruction is
Kadoken.
good. Yeah, it's Black's version of Shinku, and I would put it at the same, except Shinku is like kind of better, kind of worse. Like where Shinku lacks, Dark Destruction has, right? They're kind of polar opposite. Dark Destruction is the single-handedly, like, it will just destroy dual color decks, because dual color decks are 5 or less. That's 5 or less. But if you run into like higher than that, it's a very difficult hero art to use, and it becomes more dead. While Shinku at least can kind of always deal 7 to everything, except for a veiled unit. So I think it's just a slightly worse Shinku.
I agree with that.
Very strong and pretty versatile overall. Um, and I think it's consistent. It's just that its bad matchup is really bad. If it's like 6 and up only units, then your hero does nothing.
Hmm. Yep, I agree with this.
Hmm.
Next hero art is Ouroboros. This hero art brings back the highest MP unit from your discard pile back onto the field, and then it gains an ability where if it dies, it gets removed from the game, so you just can't bring back that unit infinitely.
Hmm.
This hero art is definitely going to be weaker soon because of the pending rotation, which takes out Dawn cards, and with Dawn takes away Rebirth, which is a very essential card to the deck. But I do think that this hero art is still viable because you can still play, black cards that are very high cost,
Hmm.
and even now that's what you can do. It does lose Tyrant though, but we're
Yeah.
talking about the meta now.
Current meta, I think Ouroboros is very good. I think that it's you have it over there at B, but I think that it's an A tier hero art. The reason is you have a lot of really big units that you can abuse, like Gor Magala, right? When you ascend, I mean when you grow it, you get the HP back. You can kind of stall with Ouroboros, which is not really what you would expect from a rebirth style deck. You think, okay, I'm just gonna bring back big units and deal damage, but Ouroboros is so versatile, not just for mono, but for dual color. It enables a lot of decks that shouldn't work, like playing purple black rebirth V, right? Or I've seen like red rebirth where they bring back Rathalos, legendary Ryu, Lucia, a lot of a lot of very strong cards that should never be in dual color are allowed to be playable in a dual color deck. And it also means that you can search it, because uh, black has false throne, which gives you the highest unit straight from your deck into your graveyard. And then the fact that you can just send like your Fate Defying Ryu, your V, your Orochi, right? And then you just have it for a rebirth a or a Burros. It's just like a very good tool, and I think that it because it allows decks that should technically never work. I think that it's a very strong hero card. It's very toolbox.
I could see that. I actually don't really respect the whole dual color thing. Like I get what you're saying, because
Mm-hmm.
Cami Orbos used to be a very real thing and somewhat consistent, very
Mm-hmm.
game breaking, because you would just completely lose those matchups.
Yeah.
I more so respect the mono black build because it's at least I know that it's playing for something
Right.
where it will be consistent. But the dual color decks are just very
They're
gimmicky.
gimmicks. They're gimmicks, but they can really set a pace, you know. And so it's hard because even though you like we may not respect those decks to be like real decks, they are real decks and they can really ruin your day just because like you have the option, you know.
Right, but I'd only respect it enough to put it as a B tier if we're weighting it on dual color.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're doing it monocolored, I could definitely see Ouroboros being an A tier hero art just because um one thing that I've always liked to say for this hero art is that it is a dark horse archetype because you can either swing very wide, um, widely in your favor and win games, or you can just like somewhat do okay, and then
Yeah,
you
yeah.
end up might losing.
Your hands can be kind of inconsistent, right? Um, but that's what is like the drawback to having something with so much power. I mean, it used to not remove the unit from the game too before. It used to just go right back where it came from. But I don't know. There's something about it. It's weird. You can kind of play Ouroboros however you want to, which is really cool for like creative minds and even for like the mono decks you can play it control or you can play it aggro, which is very strong that the hero art allows you to do that. Just getting back the health gain, the tyrants like Orochi, even the Devil Joe. Um, I think Ouroboros can really set a pace, and it can change the pace very quickly. And most Ouroboros decks will have stuff like Living Death, right?
Hmm.
Where you're able to clear a board, hit a bunch of big units, right? Or even if you just cruel game your opponent, um, if you have very good control over their MP count, or you know you just they just played a unit, you play cruel game, you see that they have a certain amount of MP, then you can be like, okay, I'm gonna Ouroboros now, and you can kind of control what you can Ouroboros back, right? Depending on your MP level, since it brings back the highest one. And I think that Ouroboros can really change the pace quick.
Well, I like it where it's at. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think it's good. I think it's definitely an A tier hero art, borderline B tier currently.
Alright, next hero art is gonna be Bringer of Nightmares. This allows you to take a revenge unit from your deck that's already has its revenge ability activated and add it to your EX pocket, and it only costs 12 AP. I think this hero art is a D tier hero art because it doesn't exactly win you the game,
Yeah, it doesn't have
much
an
like
end game,
this.
right? Like something strong about Black is that they have cards like Sigma, right, where you have an end game, an unlimited amount of end game, and when you get to that point, you won't have a hero art anymore. This will create a very good early game, depending how you build your deck, and it can have an okay mid game, but the end game is very important. And this doesn't really have an end game. Though I think the hero art is pretty solid, and I like how consistent it is. Just like, okay, I need a unit, here it is, or something. You can have like, you know, like the triple Sigma deck where you just keep copying your Sigmas and you keep bringing them out. But eventually, you're gonna reach the end of your deck. You're gonna wish you had a hero art, and you're not gonna have it. You know.
Right.
I've tried so many times to make this hero art work well for me. I love Sigma. He's one of my favorite cards. So I'm always like, yeah, let me drop like 5 Sigmas down. And then I get to the end game, and then everyone's like, oh yeah, hey, look here, I just killed all your Sigmas. What's your hero art gonna do? I'm like, nothing.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Alright. Next hero art is Dive Bomb. This hero art's pretty nutty, and we were talking about it earlier where you could use Devil Breaker defensively. You can do the same thing with Dive Attack. In that respect, I wonder if it would be in B tier next to Devil Breaker. What do you think?
I think it's better than Devil Breaker. I think it's A tier, actually. With the introduction to Nobunaga into the game, um, this will create like Nobunaga and Dark Exchange with Dive Bomb is a really insane combo. And even though it's 2 legendaries, right? Black decks have the ability to cycle very easily. So you kind of, for a lot of black decks, you'll kind of always draw into what you need, just because of how the color is designed. And getting to something like that is like a game winning combo. Personally, I think it's also very good for dual color. I know that red black is very popular Dive Bomb, and you know, mono colors, you have like Tyrant, 6 cost Tyrant can really abuse it. You have the ability to defensively use it to kill a unit with forcing a blocker in some situations from your opponent. So this hero art can get rid of 2 units. +4 means that your unit is going up high enough to get past the shield spire, and could also very easily take down an attacking unit. And then if they're low enough, they're gonna have to block it, which means that they're gonna have to use more MP just to block it when there could be another threat on the field that they have to deal with, you know. And I think the Dive Bomb is very strong, very versatile. It's not a hero art I personally use because I like hero arts that create advantage through like Shinku, right? Even like Raku, and stuff. But the hero art itself, I think, is very scary, especially if even if it's just a crow, right? 2/5 crow, you know, you can block with it, kill their unit, and then they can't really deal with the flying aspect. You're gonna deal a quick 6 damage, or if the unit has combo, it's gonna deal 12, right?
Right. I agree with that. Especially with the combo with Nobunaga and Dark Exchange and this hero art. I definitely think it brings it to A tier now that you mention it.
Yeah, that
I
combo is rough.
I would put it above
Bro.
Ouroboros
Mm-hmm.
because I respect that combo a lot. But
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about putting it above the action decks.
Um, I think it's kind of a counter to the action decks. It gives black the option to not get hit so easily by Great Divine Intervention, and it also makes things a lot harder to kill with your Denshin or your Raku, right?
Fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
Next up we have Spike Launch. This is one of the best hero arts that's ever existed in the game, and in my opinion still is. I would put this at an A tier
I
hero
agree
art.
with A tier. It's
And-
always been strong since the game came out, right?
Mhm.
Black has a lot of options to pay health, and you only have to do it to 12. And then they have cards like Predation that just give you that back anyways. And
Yep.
dealing 12 split is very, very good. As we've seen with like Raku, right? 12 split is pretty good. And it's random, so it avoids stuff like Veil.
Hmm.
You could really clear a whole board too.
Yeah, and its AP cost is not bad, even though it got nerfed.
Yeah, 20 20 is not terrible. 20 is good. 20 is a very solid number, I think, for a lot of hero arts that does something similar.
No, I'm still at the same situation where I don't know if I should put this above the action decks or not.
Oh, it's probably about there.
Alright, sounds good. Next hero art is Change Form. This one's a bit of a weirder one. If you are at 15 or less HP, you can use this 25 AP hero art to give +2/+2 to all cards in your hand and EX pocket. I think this is a D tier.
I think it's
art.
D tier also.
Probably above Bringer of Nightmares, because at least you have an end game, but definitely weaker than Charge Shot.
It has no early game. It's like complete opposite of Bringer of Nightmares. Bringer of Nightmares is like, okay, cool, I can kind of set a pacing early. This is like, please let me play you end game.
Yeah. Alright, next hero art is Raging Demon. I think this hero art is an S tier hero art.
I think this is the highest A tier, but I can see it being S tier as well.
This hero art allows you to ascend a unit that you have that's not ascended and then kill the unit in front of it.
Yeah, and it doesn't target, and it goes through a lot of stuff like Ashura.
It's a very good control hero art.
hmm It's very solid. I mean, there's not really too much to explain with it, right? It's very straightforward. You know, it does what it does. It's just, I'm gonna kill the unit in front, or you have like the combo with Alexia, where you have a chance of killing 2 units as well. 23 is a bit spendy, but it's definitely very strong hero, very consistent, and can really just deal with threats. So I can see it being S tier.
Yeah, it's worth a 23 AP. What I like
Yeah,
about it
definitely.
is that for any control players out there for Teppen, I feel like Raging Demon should be one of your favorite hero arts in the game because it allows you to, you know, keep control of the game as long as
hmm
you don't get blown out.
Yeah, and
But
if you play Raging Demon correctly, you can have a couple Raging Demons stacked up, and then you're just like, okay, what now? Like, what are you gonna do? It's just the inconsistent factor is like, oh, I didn't draw my ascend unit, and so I can't use it. But the deck itself can just kind of play around a lot of stuff with the units you have in your hand, and you're cycling at the same time. So it's definitely a very strong, straightforward hero art.
mhm. All right, next hero art we have Sekia Kuretsuha, and this hero art destroys all units that have 4 HP or less. I don't really see a whole lot of synergy with this card at all. I
hmm
don't see this hero art played. I'm thinking it is probably a D tier hero art.
I think it's D tier. There there could be some type of thing that comes out that could make this hero art a lot better, but it's really hard to control everyone's HP, and it also hits your own stuff, which makes it a lot worse.
Last hero art, but not least, Ashura Senku. This hero art allows you to move a friendly unit to a separate board slot. It'll keep its attack progression, and it'll have Veil and immune to damage for 10 seconds for 16 AP.
I put this at S tier.
Agreed.
Ashura kind of creates situations that shouldn't exist in a competitive card game. You just put this bad boy on your Orochi, your smooth, fast tyrants, your anything, Nohime. Literally anything can become a threat with this for 10 seconds. If that unit has agility, like fast tyrant, then they are put in a very terrible spot. This used to be good with the flying stuff. What's that card called? I know you love it so much.
The flying stuff. There's so many flying stuff.
Astalos.
Oh, Astalos. Yeah.
This was super annoying with Astalos, and it has not gotten better. It is probably the scariest hero art currently in the game.
Yeah, the biggest thing about this hero art and card games in general is just that it's a hero art that removes interaction from the game. So as soon as you drop this hero art, your opponent can't react and you just win.
Yeah.
This was a similar thing with how Rathalos used to work, where it would be very low AP. So then once they had like their board, their setup, and then they had the unit about to hit you, and Rathalos infinitely scaled, then they would just hit you for a ton of damage and then kill you. It's the same way it works with Ashura Senku.
Mm-hmm.
It takes away the interaction.
I think it's a little stronger in a sense than Rathawoken's older counterpart, because there's some situations where their unit is about to hit, and if you drop a blocker in front of it, like for Rathawoken you'd have a flyer, right? This will move the slot as well, so you have to take the chance. You can hover your blocker and hope that they use the hero art, move your blocker up, and when the animation is done you can block, or you take the chance where you hold it and then they didn't use it yet, and then you're going to take a bunch to the face, and you can't really, you have to kind of guess, and it creates kind of a worse situation for that aspect of the game, is the blocking aspect.
Right. But also with this hero art, you could also use it with what's it called? Non-flying with flying units, and then your flying unit will have Veil and immune to damage for 10 seconds, so it's gonna do some damage.
Yeah, you play it on your unit first, and then you play your actions to buff it, to give it flight, to instant attack, and they can't target it anymore because of the Veil.
Alright, Kyle, so this is the tier list we have now. Well, what do you think we need to move?
I think, honestly, it looks pretty good.
Even the Yawn? I felt like we were gonna get back to the Yawn.
The Yawn. Well, I would put Yawn, if we were to leave it in S tier, right? Which technically we could. I think that the A category is very solid. The Yawn would probably be the worst of the S tiers, and possibly Ashura second. Just because of the momentum that Yawn needs, and the flow of the game has to kind of go in your direction a bit. And I think Yawn is a very hard deck to play. I don't think everyone can use it without the right experience and knowledge. So like the skill gap is just hard, I think, for a good Yawn. Yeah, I mean, you put it to A. What's your reasoning?
Well, we have Hey Nico in A, and I put it in S initially because I had so much respect for the hero art, and I still do because it's one of the more powerful hero arts. But the problem is like the deck doesn't quite keep up with the hero art. So for that reason, and especially where it requires like a really good pilot. I
Mhm.
feel like Hey Nico and also Yawn should probably go like this.
Interesting.
Because I don't think enough players actually play these two decks,
Mhm.
and there's not a lot of like good pilots that run these decks, and anybody that like tries to pick this up will run into problems with all the rest of these, like moving on forward.
Yeah, I would say that I have a really good Yawn, but even when I play Yawn, I'm like I probably could have done something better. You know, it's definitely a very hard to play at high level hero art. I don't think Hey Nico is better than Rakoha though. I would put it, yeah, I would probably put it right in between Denjin and Spike Launch.
Isn't this funny how we have Jill in front of Yawn?
I know. Who would have thought?
Alright folks, that's our tier list for today. Thank you Kyle P for joining me on this tier list, and thank you for all of the great insight you have put into each section for all the hero arts. This has been very valuable and a teaching moment, I'm sure, for the
Mhm.
content out there. And if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please hit that subscribe button, maybe hit the bell to get notifications when I put out new content, hit like, do some comments maybe. I definitely check comments all the time. I'll see you all at TEPPEN World Championship 2020.
Later, y'all.